thanks for that. That's great questions. I've already started seeing coming through. So you can actually go to Slido, use Mews Unfold, and then you can ask your questions there. And then we'll track them up here, but I'll ask a few questions before you process yours. So I guess this is a question for all three of you, because on the one side, you're a hotel company, but then when I read the media, I'm like, these are tech companies. And I'm like, but they're not. They're real estate companies that manage real estate effectively. So how do you see your business? Are you a hotel company or are you a tech company? Who wants to start?
Both. I mean, it is a property company. There's no question about that. It's tech enabled. So what does that mean? Well, actually, I talked about how we've built it up from the ground up, and what that really means is we think about anything that we do with a tech angle. And why do we do it? It's not just really tech for tech's sake. It's really, how does this enable us to scale? How does this help us to enable a better consumer experience? So those are the angles that we do it from. So.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've always said that we're kind of three companies in one. One is that we're a hospitality operator. We are an operating hotel company. We have guests every night. Two, we're a real estate company, and that we have to go out and find these properties. That is a huge part of what we do. It's a huge part of, I know, what Oyo does. So again, there's technology behind that too. How do you find all of these properties? How do you plot them all on a map and create a hit list and go after them? So that real estate side is also very important and equally tech enabled. And third, we're a tech company. We have, you're not a tech company unless you have engineers. We've got a lot of engineers, a large part of our workforce.
Yeah, I think tech is a really big enabler for our experience. So it's a big part of the guest experience. But our growth we're almost fully booked. So we can only grow by getting new properties, and that is not really a tech business. I mean, yeah, we have Excel sheets there.
And if you the room is filled with hoteliers, and they're like looking at this and like, great, you've got millions in funding, or you have a whole tech team that built it. If you were to say the one thing that people can take away today that they could implement, that's a lighter touch technology that actually creates a much, much better experience, what would you say is that one thing that an independent hotel or a smaller hotel group that doesn't have the tech budget that you have could do today?
I think it's really interesting that a lot of these tools, we've built our own kiosk and spent tens of thousands of euros on that. And now if you're, I don't want to promote Mews too much, but yes, since I'm on the stage here anyway, if you use Mews, you can get a kiosk for free. And obviously ours is better, but yours is free.
Fine, I'll take that.
No, so I do think the level of the competition is rising. It becomes really easy to do a lot of stuff that we spent a lot of money and attention in, and it now just becomes a sort of common denominator. And that's also for us a challenge, like what are we going to do next? What are we going to invest in? And also what tools do we build ourselves, because we can, and what do we use as a standard tools or buy elsewhere? But I do think it becomes really easy. If you open a hotel now, you get a PMS, you have a check-in kiosk, you have online check-in, and you don't have to do much but sign a contract.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I say access is probably the number one thing you want to nail. Making that seamless not only helps guest experience, but reduces your cost substantially by being able to staff your front desk with fewer people. So if you're a traditional hotelier out there, if you can nail access with a tech way, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, I think the key thing to bear in mind is, where small properties will make a difference is, how can I have a better experience with the consumers? How can I spend more time with the guests that come to our hotel? So, and everything else that can be automated is really a distraction to that. So that's really what we're trying to do, and I think that's the way that the industry is moving forward. And access is definitely a beginning part of that. So.
Okay, thank you. So the winning question is for you. What's your occupancy? How much money do you make? I guess are people wondering in the tiny space that you have.
Amsterdam is always fully booked. Basically, from the day we opened, we opened. It was before I joined, but we opened said we have a few guests the first night, but we were available on booking and for a pretty low rate, so it was full, and it's basically been full ever since. It's really an exception that I was there the other day, and somebody walked in and said, "Do you have a room?" And it was sort of said by default, "No, we don't." Hey, we actually have a room available for tonight, and that's really rare. Rotterdam is a bit different. It's a lot bigger. Basically, when we opened Rotterdam a year and a half ago, we doubled our category in Rotterdam. So we had more private hostel rooms than were available in all of Rotterdam before that. So Rotterdam is doing pretty well right now. In the summer, we're almost fully booked, and we're interested to see how this winter will go. But there, we do see quite a different profile. In Amsterdam, we're usually fully booked a month in advance. And rather than a large part, about half, is last 24 to 48 hours, which also really is a different kind of guest and different challenges, people that haven't paid yet. In Amsterdam, if your credit card is invalid, we send you an email and then kick you out of the system if you can't pay. And in Rotterdam, we can't do that, so it has different challenges. But Rotterdam is growing.
So do you then use, so in Amsterdam, I'm assuming you don't have a revenue management system that dictates the price, or you do because of you actually can optimize it better?
Yeah, no, we have revenue management. It's CityHub was started by people who don't know hotels, and still we don't really know hotels. But we have one guy working for us. It's outsourced, so we work with him, who's the smartest guy I know in hotels, and he does our revenue management for us.
Okay, thank you. There's another question here for you, Oyo, and the question is around sustainability. With the growth that you have, how can you build a sustainable brand that does well for the world?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So we don't. I think one of the kind of key things to mention is the Oyo brand is something that we've been extending to various levels of property, but we don't always go front and center always with the Oyo brand. So if I give the UK as an example, our hotel partners there, they have already established brands themselves, and so we say it's part of the Oyo chain, but we say, what's important for you is more on the kind of the running side, and you've established a strong brand, so that's not something that we want to mess with. So I'm going to mention dynamic pricing. That's obviously one of the things that we bring to bear is to kind of optimize the yield. As we expand into new geographies, I think you might have heard that we actually invested in a hotel in Las Vegas, where we're using the Oyo brand. So we're testing, what's the capacity for us to kind of expand that into new areas. But we're not religious about it. So our vacation homes business, we have Belleville and Dance Center. We've rebranded that to Oyo Vacation Homes, but beyond that, we don't know how far we will be able to extend it into other areas. But it's one of those areas that we'll continue to experiment with. So.
Okay, thank you. So Sonder, you've been solidly in that vacation rental space or like private homes. You made an acquisition of hotels in the UK at some point in the past few months, I believe.
Yep.
So does that mean that you're becoming a hotel company, or are you now competing in the hotel space, or the lines are blurring between when hotels are moving into vacation rental and the other way around? Where do you think that stops, and how does it impact your business?
Yeah, I mean, the lines are absolutely blurring, and the fact that kind of two of the largest players here are doing both, I think, says what you need to know about it. We are going into hotels in a large way in Europe for various reasons. We'll also be doing it in the US. There's a lot of them are regulatory driven. They're also property specific. Again, we're a real estate company. We need supply, and hotels are another element where we can get that. And we also have found that there's great value add when you take our interior design and we're able to apply that to spaces that otherwise someone just went and got a furniture pack or got someone to put in a standard hotel finish to. If we can take that out and renovate that at a very low cost, that will add tremendous value and clickbait for everybody going forward. So we're able to do that, plus deploy our tech and our operating efficiencies to make the hotel proposition very, very attractive, something that our investors are super keen that we get involved with and we'll be going into in a very big way in the future.
Nice, thank you. So there's a question here about guests still getting human service. I think it's one of the struggles that we faced in the early days when we were launching an online check-in, and people were like, yeah, but like I want them to come to my reception desk and I want them to have a human experience. And I'm always advocating saying, yeah, but the guest gets to choose what they want to do. But you haven't given that choice, right? You've said the kiosk is the only experience that you get to choose. Yes. So do you see a drop in hospitality in any way?
No, I think it's better because I went to a hotel in London a few months ago, and I had to wait 15 minutes, then I had to fill in a paper form, which then somebody behind the desk typed in the computer. And with us, I probably wouldn't have to wait, I would type it in myself. And it actually allows the host, everybody who arrives gets a personalized welcome story. We try to know where you're from, and we really try to explain the hotel to you. And we have the time and attention to do that, because the typing of your email address is something you can do yourself. And I think especially our target audience sort of expects that. And so I do really think we have more attention than we would otherwise have because of all the automation we have.
And then throughout the stay, do you do something different? After they've checked into the departure point, what's that experience like?
A large part is obviously in the app, so you can 24/7 chat with us, but you can also 24/7 come to the reception. There's actually somebody there at 4 a.m. There's somebody there, and you can have a beer with them or a coffee. And so there is always somebody there for your personal questions, and their role is really on that personal attention. So I don't think people can check their own bill and can enter their own email address. And because of that, we really have a lot of attention for you. And I think it's more hospital than waiting 15 minutes to fill in the paper form.
Yeah, I think just to jump in on that, I think it's really important that we keep that human element. We keep it through call centers that are open 24/7. We do have the ability to give people the choice for in-person check-ins and things like that. And it reminds me of when I was here for the Booking.com Click event. Somebody was talking about the adoption of elevators and how that was, they needed to be really smoothed out and bring customers along, right? So you had elevator music, you had a phone in the elevator, you had an emergency stop button, all these things, right? And so you have to bring your customers along. We're trying to change customer expectation, and the customer journey is going to be very different than what it's been for the last 100, 200 years in hotels. That cannot just happen overnight. So I think the key is the mix of the human and the technological, and as we get beyond and millennials blossom and everybody goes forward, we can probably scale down the human, but it's not going to just fall off overnight from 100 to 0. So I think that kind of mix is important going forward.
Yeah, and people expect us to be fully automated, but we always want to have the host there. We thought about it earlier, especially for even smaller properties, but a focus of our brand is now really to have a host there to host you.
Nice. And at Sonder, so do you have a PMS that runs it, or have you built a tech stack that's interconnected, or is it an Excel sheet, or like how advanced is that technology that you run on?
Excel sheets for like 10,000 units. Not so much. No, we built our own PMS in-house. We've built basically our entire tech stack. We have just recently integrated with the channel manager, but we've gone for the last 4 years without it. We have direct API integrations with the major channels, and most of our guest-facing tech as well, at least on the software side, is built in-house too. We're very much a build, don't buy culture, and we'll continue that going forward.
And one of the challenges that I've seen in the vacation rental space has been around revenue management, and there's a few suppliers in the room, and they kept getting asked, how do you deal with revenue management, because they're all in different locations in town, so they don't have a demand because there's only one apartment in that, and if it's full, it's full. So how do you deal with revenue management and optimizing prices to the market?
We have we do develop tech on that front, and we buy in data, and we have algorithms, and we have all of that, but we also have a person. Right, we have someone who's looking at that, who's changing the prices themselves, who's getting pinged if something weird is happening in the market. We actually have alerts that will come up on his iPhone. I'd rather not be him in San Francisco getting those about London, but there you go. There's still, again, that element of, yes, we can do things very automated, but we still have that human element as that break.
Okay, thanks. And going back to Altay on Oyo, so you're, to me, when I read the media, I'm like, right, this is going to be a massive hotel company, but I don't know what defines it as a brand. Like, when I walk into Marriott, I expect everything to be red, right? It's very specific, and I know what I'm going to get. What is the brand definition around Oyo? Why are you growing so fast? Because yes, if you throw money at it, you can buy a lot of hardware and hotels, but why are people investing into this brand, and what's the uniqueness of it?
Yeah, I think it's because we've gone into. I talked about how only about 10% of the hotels are like the big franchises, and I think by going out kind of into the smaller hotel chain, what we're trying to do is reach an audience that perhaps doesn't want to be part of the big chains, perhaps can't afford it. So we're trying to bring that type of standardized experience that exists in the larger, more expensive chains down to kind of another level, audience level. And maybe you don't see that as much here in the West or in the US, perhaps, where things are a lot more franchised, but definitely this is something that was unique in India. Now, as we grow, the challenges for us is going to be, well, how does it actually translate here into Europe? So, and the way that we're experimenting around that is, maybe they're not here just for the Oyo brand. We're here to have the experiences that we can have in the hotel hotel with its own brand, and then it was just really more an enabler of technology for the hotel owner. So that's one of the approaches that we've taken. But I think it's still an experimentation to see how that will be positioned in different markets.
Yeah, no, I think the size thing, like, I've been brought up working at Hilton, and we know that you only start making money if the hotel's a certain size. So you have to have 80 rooms plus for it to even make sense for a brand to come in and step in. So how, if you look at you focusing on small hotels, or is there a minimum size that you have to have? And is there a maximum size that you can have with your brand and with your technology?
Yeah, that's still a work in progress. So as I said, we bought a casino in Las Vegas, so that has over 800 rooms, I think. So we'll see how it stretches into that. So it'll be an interesting adventure.
And what's the smallest size hotel you'll sign?
I don't know exactly, but I think it's probably around 5 to 10, somewhere in that range.
Wow, amazing. And it makes money.
And it makes money.
Nice. So we have a question from Eric for Sonder. When you're unbundling, how do you stay relevant without being intrusive when selling ancillaries? I guess it's clear.
It's getting to the customer at the right point in their journey, right? So, asking them whether they want daily cleans or weekly cleans or no cleans at all, and that price uplift is generally, we feel, better done early in the journey. So right when you book, there will be an option for you to choose what level of cleaning you want, and we'll target them again kind of before they check in, because that's usually a decision that you can make pretty early in the process. Whether you want new towels on a daily basis or every 3 days or something like that isn't something you really know early in the process. You want new towels when you need new towels. And so that's where, again, having the app and being able to request that on demand becomes very important. So I think getting in at the right time is how we don't get too intrusive. And just remember, we may be pushing intrastay cleans, but we will not be pushing necessarily fresh towels. We'll be kind of sitting back there on the back end. There may be something in the unit that says, by the way, if you want fresh towels, visit our app. But we're not going to necessarily be pushing a pop-up.
And when I want fresh towels, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour? Like, what does that look like?
Depends on the property service that we have. Again, some of that is about size. So in a larger hotel, we'll likely have someone on site with storage for towels, and we'll be able to do that. We're building as well storage lockers that we'll be able to just self-serve out of as well. So we can give you a code to a locker that has more towels in it. But generally speaking, we can get to anyone within, say, an hour to 2 hours.
Okay.
We have unlimited free towels.
Yeah, beaten on that one.
There's a question here from Thomas. How do you measure and understand what guests want, especially those who are not staying at your hotel? I guess it's the anticipation question. How do you anticipate that they're going to need a towel or they need a service?
Who wants to take that one?
Well, from us, it's through the app we get requests, and because of our size, it's pretty easy for us to understand what consumers are demanding. So, and then really build our products around that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing on this is, as we all get smarter and get more data on all of this, we'll be able to create that customer segmentation to some extent, right? We're still relatively new companies. A lot of people in the room probably don't have the scale, but as we develop that, we'll be able to then anticipate customer needs better. I mean, IHG launching their new PMS and everything designed to figure out whether you want to stay on an upper floor or lower floor near an elevator or not. I mean, I don't know if that's really the answer, but we will be able to get that data to help anticipate customer needs better in the future.
Yeah, I think it's mostly feedback from the host, but we also have by design, a really simple product. We have one room category. When you book, you can't even choose. On our kiosk, you can choose if you want a top or bottom up. You can book breakfast, but we send you to the breakfast club next door. So we don't do any F&B except for the vending machines we have. We don't have any upsells, which I was approached a while ago by somebody saying, we want to upsell your empty rooms for early check-in and late checkout. And I said, well, we don't have empty rooms, and early check-in and late checkout are free, which is weird for people from the hospitality industry. But we do think that comes back in ratings. So people can stay an hour longer, it's free if it's available, and then they do have to leave because the room needs to be cleaned. And we don't make a few euros there, but we do believe that helps in general with our ratings, and that's what we can charge.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage of that model. I mean, we can't generally provide a late checkout because it's a same-day turnover. We're very booked as well. So same-day turnover, especially on a larger apartment, we need a 3-hour cleaning window. So there's no way we can give you an extra hour in bed. So I'm jealous of having only one set of rooms and one room type with quick turnaround times. I only wish we had that. Yeah.
It will change. In Copenhagen, we're going to do disabled rooms, which will also be sort of small group rooms. And then we'll have room types, which will be a mess.
So if you were to look at new technologies, like when I hear the word blockchain, I roll my eyes because there's no application for that on our industry. But what is a technology that you see in the shorter term coming into either one of your brands or something that you're looking at that you're excited about and that you think will actually get implemented in the short term?
I mean, I presented a lot of them already. It's just getting the simple things right. So digital locks is a key one, and that's also true for vacation homes as well. The problem there is the host can't always be over there. So anything that can enable accessibility into the apartment is actually one of the key things that you want to solve first. The other one is just the check-in and check-out experience. Catering for different use cases there. I think where you're taking out the pain for someone to get from getting to the door into their room, making that as quick as possible. So really start with the simple things, get those right, and the technology is really caught up there. So not a lot of this stuff is already commoditized. It's just about making and putting it into the rooms, making sure that experience is right, and then we can get more into the sexy stuff like the drones and whatever else that we want to do.
It's not as sexy as for a lot of you guys because you're revenue top line people and you kind of get you get to do the cool stuff. The people who are looking at the cost side of this and technology, one of the biggest things that we have in any hotel or service apartment operator, whatever cost base is going to be maintenance, and it's classically an area that has not had a whole lot of tech deployed to it. But Internet of Things sensors on your boilers, on your circuits, on just everything that are really cheap and easy to deploy with a central hub that maybe you also use for your access system. And you bring all of that together into an ecosystem where you have a smart unit. And I don't mean a smart unit where you talk to it and it tells you that it loves you. I mean a smart unit in that it's actually predicting when things will go wrong and alerting you and helping with predictive maintenance and helping you address a problem before a guest even knows that it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I do think our hub is a sort of pretty high-tech, futuristic experience, but their expectations are also changing. Like it used to be really cool to have LED lights, and now you can only buy LED lights in a hardware store. So what is going to be the next light and sound system? That's something we're looking at. If we should talk to the hub, but there's also another interface. We find that it's hard to explain all these things to people when they come into the hotel. We have a bar, we have a hub to explain. There's a lot of things to explain, so that's complicated. And then I do think the multi-channel thing is going to be a challenge. People want to be on their channels, not necessarily on our channels.
Yeah, great one. So I've got two more questions. I've got one that I'll take from here, and then I've got one question to round it up. How do Mews, Oyo, Sonder, ... attract tech talents, and how do you compete against large tech companies like the Googles, the Facebook, and Amazons? For Mews, it's been hard to find talent because we're scaling rapidly. We've had great investment, and we now need to find tech talent. And the one swift change we've made in the last year is really focus on us as a brand of an employer. And in Prague, we don't really sell to hotels, and we therefore didn't do marketing in that market. And now we realize, crap, nobody knows us. So it's really hard to find tech talent and to get them excited. So we've actually brought an employee branding guy whose full-time job is to brand us as a great employer to work at, to engage the teams, to talk about it publicly, to get us talking at conferences. And it is a very different kind of branding that we're doing and different kind of marketing that we're doing to establish ourselves as an employer that you want to work at. And one of our longer-term missions in the next 2-3 years is become the preferred employer in the hotel space, or preferably outside the hotel space. And it needs a lot of work, and it isn't something that you put a pay-per-click campaign on LinkedIn and you just attract the tech talent, because they just don't move for that, because they can get a job, they get approached every day for new jobs, and they can get as much money as they want, but they need to get excited about your brand and wanting to work there. So we spend a lot of effort building that brand as an employer. I don't know if that's similar to you.
Yeah, I mean, from us, it's part of it is building a brand. But I think also we need to make that connection between technology and having a real impact with our customers. So anything that we build touches hundreds of thousands of people. So we have about 500,000 people staying in any given OYO hotel in any given day. So we're building at such a scale that there's a real impact on whatever we build, and the ability to impact those hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis. So that's part of the story that we tell.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for Sonder, I mean, we're trying to recruit tech talent in San Francisco. Great luck, right? But we have had great luck, and a lot of that is because of getting the story right, becoming an inspirational story, something that's beyond just you're an engineer, you code, that's what you do, go home, and that's actually something that hospitality can do very well. It's a very tangible industry. You walk into a hotel, you can look and feel and understand what that bricks and mortar is like and what that hotel delivers. And you get happy guests at the end of it. So I think it's selling that story that you're making an impact on people's lives and what they're doing, traveling, and that should be very exciting. So I think that story is huge. And we need to do a better job as an industry kind of trumpeting that rather than, we're an old industry trying to figure out what to do next. Actually, no, this is a great thing that has a real life-changing application to a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with that. The actual that there's people visiting your place. I was in our hotel and somebody brought his girlfriend for her birthday to a CityHub because he thought it was the coolest thing they could do for her birthday. And that made me really proud. Like, we built something and they come from another country to see this. And I do think that also applies to hiring, like explaining that it's not just a software thing online, but it's actually physical. You can go there and you work on that, and that's interesting.
I had one of my employees have her honeymoon in a Sonder the other day, which I thought was employee loyalty at its finest. Yeah.
So last question. So the next discussion is about PSD2, which is the new legislation that came in on the 14th of September from the European Union, saying for payments that are taken online, we have to have a two-factor authorization. So we have to have you get an SMS and you have to enter that into the payment flow. How is that impacting your business today, and is it impacting your business?
We were worried, but nothing really changed on that moment. So we'll see.
Similarly, no one's put any urgent meetings in my diary to discuss it, so I assume it's not having a major impact.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things we're aware of. We already have actually that solutions in some markets where, let's just say, payment is a little bit more, an interesting challenge, and so there's two-factor authentication exists. I don't think it's going to be a major challenge. So.
Okay, clear. So for us, like I remember when the discussion started, and then as you got closer, the panic started rising because it's really changing the way that people book. And then I remember on the 14th of September at midnight, our product teams were all online waiting for the transactions to come in, and like 2 hours later, nothing, and like 3 hours later, nothing, and they're like, I'm going to bed. So I woke up the next morning seeing them wait for it, and it really hasn't had much of an impact, but it's definitely coming. So there's been a postponement of it, but it's not going away. So that's why we brought in the next two speakers from Booking.com and from Adyen to help us about this. But in the meantime, thank you very much for today. This was excellent. Thank you.